All right. Welcome back, everybody. We hope you were able to follow up with the great agencies that presented during the reverse pitch. Now, all of the SBIR STTR agencies require a proposal package for a startup to be considered for non-dilutive funds. Each of these packages will look a little bit different and will have different requirements. One thing all agencies have in common is that submitted proposal packages will go through multiple rounds of review before funding is awarded. Our next panel invites agency reviewers from granting and contracting agencies to discuss what reviewers are looking for as they receive prospective proposal packages. And this panel is going to be led by Economic Developer Officer for the Arrowhead Center, Carlos Murguia. So I'll pass it over to you, Carlos.
Thank you, Garrett. Very excited to be here. My name is Carlos Murguia. I work for the Arrowhead Center on different programs supporting the startups, and my title is Economic Development Officer. So very excited to be in this panel. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this panel called Mind of an Evaluator. It's going to be a discussion with a very exciting guest invites that we have today. I'll be your guide through today's discussion. We know that navigating SBIR STTR funding is not a small feat. Even if you are, I mean, specifically if you are new to the game or haven't been received an award yet. Each agency has its own unique playbook, different priorities, requirements, and budget limits. Figuring out how to tailor your proposal to stand out is key. And that's why we have brought together a panel of experienced federal program managers. They are here to discuss the process and give you insider tips on building a proposal that not only ticks all the boxes, but it helps you shine and get the attention you deserve. We hope that you leave today's session with actionable insights and a better idea on what it takes to create a winning SBIR STTR proposal. Now let's meet our panelists. I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourself, share your experience with SBIR STTR programs, and one key takeaway that you hope the audience will gain today. And I would like to start with Tim. Tim, welcome.
Well, hello, everybody. Give you a little background on me. I had over 30 years at Los Alamos Lab, basically in two chunks. Went from a working engineer to middle and senior management. In between those two chunks, I successfully led two contract engineering companies and managed technology development at a startup company, which is really the reason I eventually took the break from the lab. A little unique because I've worked both sides of the DOE SBIR process. I've been involved in submission of proposals, as well as being tapped, as a lot of the people at the labs are, to be a technical evaluator. And talk a little bit about that further, but the DOE labs rely heavily on, the DOE itself relies heavily on staff from the labs to do the proposal reviews, because it's a lot of work in a short time period. And I'll talk a little more about that, but that's a good snapshot of my background.
Thank you, Tim. And I would like to pass the moderation over to Sara. Sara Telano, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Very much. Yes, we were having a little bit of technical issues there, so thank you so much for the entrance. So next, we're going to introduce Tammi Taylor. Tammi, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hi. Hello, my name's Tammi Taylor, and I am a contracting officer at the Department of Transportation. I've been working for the federal government for a little over 36 years, and I had most of my background at the DoD. I worked at both the Army and the Air Force. I've been in contracting, I would say it's been about 25 of those years. So I currently, as I said, work specifically on the SBIR program at DOT, and we do award contracts. And I think other than that, yeah, I'm looking forward to going over some of our specifics on our program today.
And next, we're going to introduce Jane Matthews, who's the Data Report Management of the Department of Services for SBIR.
Hi, everyone. I am Jamie Aziz, and I am the Data and Records Management Lead with the DHS SBIR program. I joined DHS SBIR in 2019, so I've been with the program for about 5 years. I have a lot of experience working at DHS and also a few other government agencies as well. So I hope from this panel, attendees can walk away with a better understanding of the DHS SBIR program requirements and overall just better information about what to look out for the proposal submission process.
Awesome. And we have Tammi. Welcome.
Thank you, Carlos. I am the other Tammi on the call, Tammi Neville, and I am a program specialist with the USDA, SBIR, and STTR programs. As a note, as USDA is a granting agency, not a contracting agency. My role and my experience with these programs has primarily been administratively implementing the USDA programs, answering application questions, awardee questions, and organizing and coordinating what I would refer to as behind the scenes work for peer review panels. The one critical thing or key takeaway I'd like for people to take away from today's panel, specifically with USDA, is we understand that the application process is complex, but our requests for applications or RFAs also break down the guidelines and the narrative contents through different prompts that are stated within that solicitation. So to be successful, it's important to locate this information in the RFA and to address this information. And please note, we're always here to help answer any questions you might have during the application preparation phase, as well as programs like your New Mexico FAST program here with the Arrowhead Center.
Thank you, Tammi. And I think you're already providing a couple of answers to my first question, which is what advice do you have for new applicants navigating the complexity of the SBIR, STTR programs? Let's think of first timers, people who haven't received one yet. So how can they identify the specific priorities of your agency? In this case, let's go with USDA.
Sure, I'll start us off. For USDA, we list not only the USDA strategic goals in the RFA, but we also find different research priorities within each of the topic areas. Especially those are especially detailed within that phase 1 RFA, which is result in 10 very broad topic areas that encompass nearly all technology areas. So even if you think that your technology isn't for agriculture, there may be a way that we can bring you into USDA through these very broad topic areas.
Awesome. And I would like to hear from a different agency, Tammi Taylor. What about DOT? What advice do you have for first timers? How can they identify the priorities of DOT?
I think it's very important for us. We do contracts, not grants, exact opposite of USDA. So there is a little bit more structure involved. So it's very important to make sure you read the solicitation when we publicize that and follow what is required. We want to work with people, but we're pretty strict about making sure that what is said in the solicitation is contained in a proposal just for it to get reviewed by our peer groups, our technical expertise. So I think it's really important to make sure that you go ahead and read that and pay attention, especially to deadlines on things such as when questions can be asked, when the proposals actually due, the process of submitting the proposal, that it can be time consuming. So don't wait till 5 minutes before it's due to go ahead and, try and upload the proposal. I think things like that are all important. When I said pay attention to deadlines, because we do have a very open, loose exchange on administrative questions that come in, and we're more than willing to address those to help people make sure that they are doing what they need to do to get their proposal in and reviewed by the technical experts. So once that period closes, though, then there's no longer an opportunity to do that. So it's, I think, right within the first few pages of our solicitation, we always put a chart saying the specific deadlines on different things that we're going to offer, and paying attention to that's important.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Team, any experiences you want to share about this? Any comments? Any advice to new applicants?
Yeah, I think I'd just elaborate a little bit on what Tammi said. The really, really important things are in the solicitations. Gives you the instructions for everything from page lengths to required sections to deadlines, sometimes even font type and size. And those are all extremely important because you never get to really have an exchange about the specific organization's priorities or how good your proposal is if it fails the first step, which is always an administrative review to make sure you check all the boxes on all that administrivia up front. But it's all given in the proposals directions. So please pay attention to that. It is very complex, but you got to get through that first wicket to get anybody to look at your proposal.
Thank you, team. Jamie, new applicants, what are your top 1, 2 takeaways, advice to people who are looking at SBIR STTR for the first time?
Yes, I definitely agree with the others on making sure you read very closely the solicitation, because there's a lot in there, and it could be easy to oversee something. So with that said, I always, I want to encourage potential applicants to always reach out to us if there's any confusion, if there's any questions. No questions are stupid. If there's something's confusing, it could be confusing to somebody else as well. So, never to hesitate to reach out to our office and ask questions, because we don't want you not to ask the question and then somehow you have a non-responsive proposal. So always ask the questions. Also encourage new applicants to take advantage of all the opportunities and resources that are offered during the pre-solicitation period. So I had mentioned in the reverse pitch, we recently launched a phase 0 program that helps new applicants understand the solicitation and the submission process. So to, check out those webinars. And we also hold deconstructing SBIR webinars every year that provides more information about, solicitation requirements and opportunities and more guidance around that. And all of these resources are on our SBIR page. So if you want to see past deconstructing SBIR webinars, I encourage folks to check out the Deconstructing SBIR homepage, and as well as the phase 0 webinars.
Awesome. And I would like to stay with you, Jamie. We're learning about the differences between a granting and a contracting agency. So can you elaborate on what you guys are and what is like the main difference between submitting a proposal to you versus another kind of agency?
Yes, so for DHS, we only issue contracts only. And I believe the grants, there's more flexibility with how the structure is, but with our contracts, there's specific funding and schedule thresholds and requirements. So we have the solicitation topics within each year, and they address specific priority needs of our DHS components. And we start with the phase 1, which to, the objective is to demonstrate the feasibility, and we have a threshold of 170,000 for our phase ones for 5 months. Our phase two, the objective to demonstrate the prototype development, and our threshold is up to 1.5 million for 24 months. So within, those contracts, we have specific contractual deliverables that are required to meet those objectives for both phase one and phase two.
Thank you, Jamie. Tammi, Taylor, you guys also do contracting. So anything you would like to add on Jamie's remarks?
Sure. I mean, similar to what Jamie said, I think the important part about for me to say on doing contracts means that they follow the federal acquisition regulation. So contracts must be awarded in accordance with the FAR. And that has very specific procedures and rules that you have to follow, because this is SBIR is a competitive program. So as far as the way we evaluate in fairness to all offers, meaning that, answering questions is done, everything is how we conduct the process is put in the solicitation. Doing things such as debriefings, again, they all have to fall back on the FAR. So they are a little bit more structured. But again, I feel like, I think it was Tim that said, yes, the solicitations are quite lengthy, but they're done in plain language and it should be clear. And if you follow it, then you should be all set with that. But that you should be, good to go as far as getting your offer evaluated by the government. But I think that's the key difference. And as Jamie said, yeah, it is structured. We too have the phase one, that we do a phase one solicitation. Our phase ones can go up to 200,000. Sometimes they are at a lesser value. And it's important to pay attention to those values, because those, if like somebody submits an offer above the value, that we're not even going to look at it. It's also the phase two process does go to the 1.5 million, and that'll go again through another peer review before it's actually selected for an award, the phase two, which as a phase one awardee, you can submit a phase two. We send out instructions and guidelines on how to do that once it comes time for that. And I think
Thank you, Tammi.
Yeah.
And now I'm gonna go to the other side of the virtual room with Tammi, Neville from USDA. Let's talk about you guys as a granting agency. What are the differences? Well, what do we include in a successful proposal package?
Sure. I think there's a lot of similarities, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of differences too. And when we move on to the granting side, at least for USDA, we're not going to put a contract out for a very specific proposal call so we're going to put out our 10 topic areas. I've said before, they're very broad topic areas to try and encompass any really great technologies that can be brought in to move agriculture forward in different technologies. So I think that's probably one of the biggest differerences, is the openness or the ability to encompass all these different technology areas. We do not follow the FAR because we're not issuing contracts. Everything falls within 2 CFR 200 is our guiding document. And anything that you need to know, most of those references go back to 2 CFR 200, but all the legal information is included within a solicitation similar to the contracting agencies. And we're going to use a peer review panel after our administrative screening. So there's going to be maybe a different evaluation process. It depends on how each agency is a little different, it seems like. I'm not sure what else to add.
Well,
Tim?
and sorry, and I had a relevant question come in. just because of something you said, Tammy, thought this might be a great place to answer it. And this might be confusing sometimes, but are the reviewers of the submitted proposals known to the public? I know each agency has a different way of doing it, and we'd love to hear from you all on what you know about that.
Sure, I can start that off. For USDA, we do not make that information public. If there's a reviewer that wants to publicly acknowledge that they were on the review panel, they have the option to do that. But in order to enable a free and open discussion about the proposals, we do hold the panelists' names confidential unless they want to self-disclose.
Yeah, that's the same at DOT. The panel is not known to the public, and actually, I don't think I've never had it. We wouldn't let them disclose even if they wanted to. We don't release that information of who, because we do a peer review, so it's a panel as that looks at these, and they work as a unit as one. So, you know, to bounce ideas and criteria off one another.
Jamie, any differences? How is it with you guys?
It is the same. We don't, you know, we have a review panel that's formed for each topic, and we don't release that who they are to the public.
And then wanna go to Tim as a consultant. What are the differences that you see between putting a proposal for a granting versus a contracting agency?
Well, I've only put proposals together for granting, but agencies. But I think it's important to kind of recognize that even on the granting side, this isn't like a MacArthur grant where you can just get money and go off and do something good. You have to basically lay out what you're going to do, what your own milestones are going to be, and where you're going to get at the end of it during the time period of the performance period. So it's kind of like a contract in a way, maybe in some ways a little tighter, because it's things you come up with that you're going to be held to, and that's important to remember, because you're basically laying out your own grading scale.
Thank you. And I would like to continue on the next question with you. So for those applicants that are unfamiliar with the intricacies of each agency, what advice can you provide on putting together a proposal that meets the specific requirements of each agency? When you are consulting with clients, how do you make sure that they don't have like a template that they want to use for everything?
Yeah, well, that is definitely a danger, because each agency is a little different, and something that works for like National Science Foundation might not work at all for DOE. So you have to tailor, I mean, sounds like a broken record, but you have to go back to the specifics of the instructions that come out in the solicitation. That's where you start. And then also understand some of the subtleties of when the topic areas come out. In some agencies, they're much broader than in others. And DOE, for example, tends to be very narrowly focused on specific topics and subtopics. So you have to pay attention to that and keep that in mind as you're doing your proposal. And I guess you actually mentioned something I think is a common pitfall, that people often sort of write a generic proposal and try to just shotgun it across a lot of agencies. And that absolutely is not a success formula.
Yeah, I can see just people concerned with timing and not putting enough time and attention to work on a very tailored proposal. Sara, what about AFRL? What advice do you guys have on how to put together a successful proposal for you guys?
Yeah, very similar to that, for both the Space Force side of the house or whichever technical directorate, there's specific, objectives that each proposal has. So, echoing what team said and the rest of the team is you really have to read the proposal, understand what is being asked of you, and really spend some time, structuring what those objectives are, how you can respond and meet those objectives. And that's really how we evaluate our proposals as well. And agree with Tim, it's not a good habit to take one and try to tailor it to everybody else because the needs are very different from each agency. And even with the Air Force, we're so wide that one area may ask for something more technical and the other one may just be looking for something basic on the basic lines of research. So it's important to understand the proposal and really focus on those objectives.
Thank you, Sara. Jamie, so I know I won't use a template. I want to pitch to you, put together a very specific and tailored package. What are the key elements that are going to make my proposal stand out from the competition from other proposals?
I would say the key elements that we are looking for. So, the technical merit and the innovation of that proposed approach and its progress towards the topic solution. So we always have specific topics, released in each solicitation that address specific component needs. So it really has to articulate, what it's doing to address the requirements that are in the solicitation. Also the potential of the commercial application that has to be articulated well in the proposal, and the qualifications of the proposed staff, which would include the ability to perform the proposed R&D work. So having that demonstrated in the proposal that the capabilities that they can move forward with that specific R&D work. And also is, the proposed cost is reasonable and appropriate to that proposed work. So again, I think just, an overall, just making sure that all of that is well articulated and communicated, and it's very clear to the reviewers, what that proposed solution is and how that's going to address, what they're looking for.
Thank you, Jamie. Tammi, Taylor, is it any different with you guys at DOT?
No, I think those are a lot of the key areas. The one thing I would say, similar to what Tim said, our topics that are put out are quite specific. We're really looking for certain innovative solutions. So in addition to following the solicitation, it's really important to make sure that what you're putting your offer against is addressing what the government has identified in the topic. And using innovative solutions, that is one of the criteria that we look at. And I think that can weigh in a lot if it's a new or different way to look at something that the government may not have heard about, but as the expertise panel evaluates it, could look to say, wow, that might work. This could be something we should invest in. So I think that's another key important thing to have your offer looked at and considered, is to make sure that you're providing something that's clear and addresses the topic that you're submitting your proposal against.
Yeah, no, that's smart. Team, on the other side of the table, do you have any secret sauce? How can we make the proposal stand from the competitors? What are the key elements?
Well, I think the innovation is a really important piece that is probably, regardless of the agency, that folks want to see. Is it really innovative? And the other is that, when the topics come out, at least in DOE, they generally all have some basis in either administrative priorities administration priorities, or in problem solving for the specific organization that basically owns the topic. And those are the other two things I think that would make a successful proposal. If it's innovative, and if you're either solving a problem that the administration is concerned with, or you're solving a problem that some of the pieces of the organization issuing the grant has put out. That those are probably the two most important things.
Thank you, Tim. Tammi, Neville, is there anything that we miss? Anything you would like to add?
For us, I think, you know, that following what Tim and some of my other panelists have said, that innovation is really what's key. Our panel is looking for innovative ideas that are going to really be disruptive in agriculture and really move agriculture forward. And so that's going to be one of those key elements, as well as you know, that well-organized proposal that clearly lays out what the project plan is going to be, what the research is going to be conducted during the project period. I think those are some really key elements.
Thank you, Tammi. And this is no different than pitching to investors. You need clarity, certainty, a clear explanation on the IP, on the innovation. So we're talking about the key elements and how to make the proposals stand out. So let's switch gears and talk about the pitfalls. What are the common pitfalls that an applicant should avoid when they are preparing their packages? And Tammi, if you don't mind, to kick us off on that one, just how can this be mitigated?
Sure. For me, for USDA, the most heartbreaking situation is when we conducted an administrative review before the proposals even go to the peer review panel, and we have to decline a proposal at that stage because they didn't meet formatting requirements or they didn't have a required document. Yeah. It's just heartbreaking because that company didn't even get to have their technical merit or their innovation even really reviewed by the peer review panel. There's no technical review. It was an administrative error. And I understand the frustration on the applicant side when they receive that decline notice, but it is heartbreaking on my side to also submit that decline notice at that time because of the same reasons. We set our formatting and page guidelines in order to try and create a fair and equitable stage for all of our applicants. So we're really trying to create this equity, and when somebody doesn't follow the formatting guidelines, then the proposal gets an inequitable amount of space or time in that reviewer's mind. So I can't really emphasize it enough how important it is to submit what documents are required, that's indicated in the RFA, and to submit them in the format that's outlined in the RFA. We really don't have any secrets. We put it all in the RFA. And then we'll also answer any questions that applicants have while they're preparing their proposal package. So like I say, we have no secrets. We want to make it as easy as we can. There's just a lot of hurdles in the way.
Thank you. And I'd like to take this time to just, we've had some questions come in, and this would be for the panelists here. This kind of touches on what you were talking about, Tammi. So really, from a reviewer's perspective, what elements of a proposal are the most influential in the decision-making process, and how can applicants ensure they address those points effectively?
I think we kind of talked about that with this prior one with the key elements that make the proposal package stand out. Is that, I just want clarity, is that kind of, is everybody else interpreting that the same way?
Are there any aspects that have more weight over another?
So for USDA, we're going to put additional weight on the evaluation criteria for the scientific and technical feasibility and the market potential. Those two will be evaluated at the same weight, which is double the weight of any of the other evaluation criteria that's listed in the RFA. So you can see that there's definitely more emphasis placed on those two evaluation criteria.
Okay. Tammi, what about DOT?
Yeah, I mean, I would say right now, I mean, that's right in our solicitation. So it says what the evaluation criteria is, what we use, and they're listed in descending order of importance. So, you know, our process in the phase ones being at the dollar value that they are, again, we do contracts under the FAR, and they're done under what's called simplified procedures. So we do that because we're trying to be a little bit more innovative and easy to get offers looked at. But so there isn't really a weighting in our phase ones, and but it is put right in the solicitation. So it should be clear to somebody who is putting in an offer what's looked at.
Thank you. Sara, Jamie, anyone's more important at AFRL or DHS?
So I want to go back actually to one of the questions about the reference to the pitfalls that will actually help connect to this question. So I think, you know, besides some of the things that Tammi mentioned about some of the basic requirements in the solicitation, the format of it, when areas in the evaluation factors are left out or unanswered, that can also be a pitfall to how we evaluate those proposals. Each and every solicitation has the specifics of what we're looking for. And unfortunately, there are times that companies will actually not, you know, they may spend more time in one area and then ignore the other area. That does and can affect how the evaluators are looking at the evaluation as a whole. Again, you know, each solicitation has a specific areas that we're looking at, and it's really important for them to answer each question completely or answer each area completely and provide the information. But a lot of times, you know, they may focus more on the cost, you know, and they may not pay attention so much to the scientific, the market, or the technical, or the dual usage that we have. So these two questions actually relate to each other of what makes a strong application is ensuring you're answering to those questions specific and ensuring that you're paying attention to those evaluation criteria. Because if you do leave some of them out or don't provide the complete answers to them, then that can affect your overall application and your overall proposal.
Thank you, Sara. Jamie, anything to add?
I will say I will echo what Sara and the other panelists said. I definitely feel like the pitfalls and that question go hand in hand because I can't say enough, you know, encourage applicants to not wait until the last minute. That's another thing, because you know, there's so many pieces that go into preparing the solicitation, and, you know, all the different requirements that need to be set, such as, you know, registering for, you know, SBA and SAM.gov, and sometimes that can take time. So factoring that in to when you start, so that you're not scrambling last minute. And then with that said, you know, the technical proposal is the main chunk of the proposal. So, you know, making sure that you set enough time to really focus on that and make sure that you articulate very well, you know, all the elements that we all talked about previously, and making sure that's communicated and clear.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm just having a flashback to my master days, working on my paper, working on my thesis, and making sure that I was able to meet all the requirements and all, because at the end of the day, everything was important, the technical part, the introduction, the conclusions, the research. So team, what pitfalls have you seen? How do we avoid them?
Well, this probably will sound kind of dumb, but when you evaluate a stack of proposals, it's really kind of shocking how many of them don't address the topic. And I know when people are submitting these, you know, they have some really neat, cool research, and they're very excited about it. But one of the most important things is somewhere early in your submission, you need to address how this thing that you're so proud of, and it's so innovative and it's going to change the world, how it actually addresses the topic. And it's probably not more than a sentence or two, but it's really important because the reviewers, that's one of the first things they're looking for. Does this address what we asked? And if it's too difficult to put it in a sentence or two, it probably means you're not really addressing the topic that they put out. And like I said, it sounds dumb, but you see a lot of proposals rejected for that.
And building on that, what tips do you have about clarity and conciseness? In venture capital, we like to say, if you cannot pitch it to your grandma, it's probably it won't happen, right? Or having an elevator pitch, like how do I communicate my idea in a sentence, in a paragraph, without giving you a 40-page document on the technical side of things?
I think the answer to that is just practice and tap other resources before you submit your proposal. Maybe people that are technically inclined but don't know anything about your specific subject area. Talk to as many people as you can to get their opinion on whether your proposal makes sense. It's a question of time. You can spend a lot of time on your own, but if you're in your own bubble, the technical evaluators are not going to be much different than those people that you can talk to that you might know who aren't super familiar with your process.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim. Tammi, Neville, how do I avoid or how not to overwhelm USDA with my technical, like how do I communicate my idea with clarity and consistency to you guys?
Yeah, it's essential that we, as applicants, you start to be able to clearly and concisely convey your vision, convey your plan. It's almost kind of like, I think, painting a picture, but with your words. You want them to be able to see what you're saying, in this clear picture, with using your words on the paper. All of our USDA reviewers are going to be from the broad overarching topic area. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be an exact expert in your precise area. So you need to write to make sure that you're writing to an educated audience, but also an audience that's educated within that broader area. For example, let's just take our forest and forest related products topic area. All of the reviewers for that topic area are going to be experts in that very broad field, but they may not be an expert on the precise product that you might be proposing to create from a forestry, from timber. And so, making sure that you write to that broader audience is always helpful.
Thank you, Tammi. Sara, any advice? How do we find that balance?
So I'm going to use another metaphor. Tammi used the paint the picture one. I like to tell people, tell me the story. Tell me how you're going to start, how you're going to walk me through the middle, and the benefit. What is the novel technology that you're presenting to us, or the solution that you're presenting to us. So I go into the storytelling mode, and like Tammi said, sometimes we do have very high experts, but sometimes we actually don't have a lot of experts because there may be a group of people that their expertise may be in a different field. But if you connect to them through that, telling a story of how we're going to walk you through to a solution on that topic that you're asking for, I think that's a very good way of putting it into words. And just being concise, make sure they're using the same language throughout your proposal. Sometimes you get different people that coordinate or come together to write a proposal, but it's important for the team or the company to maybe set some time to read the proposal, make sure that it has a good flow to it and it has a good positive story of novelty in it to ensure that we are being innovative and we are answering that question that's in the topic first, foremost. So that would be my way of making it more simple. I'll use storytelling in a way.
Yeah, great. Sara, thank you so much. Jamie, Tammi, Taylor, any advice? How do we how do we make sure that we are scientific enough, but that we are able to deliver the message in plain English for the reviewers?
Yeah, I would definitely echo what the others had said. I think, running it by someone else if someone doesn't understand it, you know what I mean? Just making sure you're using concise language. There's only a certain amount of pages that you have to articulate what you're doing. So for DHS, it's the technical proposals 15 pages. So make sure you use that to communicate the specific elements, what you're doing for your R&D proposed effort. I would also say because we do receive such a high volume of proposals, so I think the focus should definitely make sure that it's concise and you're hitting the elements that are outlined in the solicitation. So for example, in the DHS solicitation, there are specific requirements within the technical proposal that we ask applicants address. So making sure that you hit those specific components, that kind of helps, build that picture for us and to understand, what we need to know.
Thank you. And let me continue with you on resources, tools, and anything that is available to the public to get a deeper understanding on SBIR, STTR. Is there any support that people can get in creating a compelling proposal?
Yeah, I would say, to check out our webinars that we currently have out. So we just had a deconstructing SBIR webinar that helps understanding of our current solicitation and our program requirements. All our recordings are on our webpage, as well as our phase 0 webinars. They provide help and guidance to new applicants trying to navigate that, their first time submitting a proposal. Also, to make sure to pay attention to the specific processes and deadlines in the solicitation. So for example, we're currently at the end of our pre-solicitation period, but during our pre-solicitation period, companies have the opportunity to reach out directly to the technical POCs that are listed within each topic. So during the pre-solicitation period, they can email directly their questions to get more clarification on the technical requirements of the topic. So to take advantage of that, and to also, reach out to our program office, if there's any questions, any program related questions. I know the solicitation, we've mentioned it many times here, that it's very long and there's a lot to read. So it's easy to miss something. So if there's any questions, to email us and just ask so that we can provide that clarification for you.
Thank you, Jamie. Tim, from the consultant side of things, are there any artificial intelligence tools, anything that we can use to get a better understanding, any tools to provide additional support? What advice would you give people on this topic?
Well, I'm not an AI guy, so I'm not sure I can answer competently on what the capabilities of AI would be. I think at least as an outside observer involved in some of the SBIR process pieces, I wouldn't be too keen on using AI at this point. I think it's a little immature for that. And going back to something that was said earlier, I think this whole process, and I'm sure it's regardless of agency, it really is telling a story and telling a compelling story. You really want the evaluators to feel like you have a good chance of success, and that the success you're proposing is in something that's very innovative that matters to the agency. And I'm not sure AI can get that across quite yet. Hopefully it never does.
Yes, I agree. Tammi, Neville, we talk about communicating with the agencies, attending webinars, not using AI for now. What else?
So USDA has a requirement. Every time we post a new request for applications, we have to conduct a technical assistance webinar. And then that is it is presented live, and then it's recorded, and it's available on the funding opportunity page. until the solicitation close date. So that is a great resource for anyone to go and watch it, whether or not they have the specific live time event available in their calendar or not. We also publicize other application-driven webinars throughout the year. Most of them are advertised on our listserv, as well as the USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture events website. I just want to drop a note. If anybody wants to sign up for our listserv, they can send an email to sbir@usda.gov, and I'll go ahead and get you added to that listserv. But I don't want to discount what you guys are doing at the Arrowhead Center. You guys are an excellent resource for applicants. We're here to answer any questions that these FAST programs might not be able to help you with, but please make sure you reach out to your FAST programs too, because they are they're really working to help you guys become successful in your applications.
Thank you, Tammi. Sara, any additional tools?
Yes, so one of the additional tools that I always tell people is use your network. You know what I mean? Use your network. You guys have a lot of resources with each other. Those companies that have been successful, reach out to them, learn from them. Another thing that you can always do if your application is not selected, you could always go back to the agency and ask for feedback, ask for some inputs to why you weren't selected. Of course, what NMSU or the FAST program is doing is an excellent resource, but rely on each other. Other companies are out there trying to do the same thing that you're doing. Some of them have been successful, so reaching out to them to learn from them can also be very good to get you started. And then one last suggestion that I would say is that anytime you see a request for information or request for sources, I'll answer those. When federal agencies put those out there is because we're really trying to get information, and you can shape what that topic is going to look like. So the more input we receive from those requests for information or requests for sources, or notice of intents, however you want to call it, is definitely take your time to respond to them, because we will review them, we will read them, and that will definitely shape what the next topic is going to look like. And you may have had a chance by providing some information to get you ahead of the game by just really knowing what may be coming out there or what we're looking for. So, take advantage of those requests for informations or notice of intents, notice of solicitations, to provide us that feedback. So we want the communication as well, coming from, what we call, coming from the small businesses to help us shape what that future requirement is going to look like.
Thank you, Sara. And last but not least, Tammi, Taylor, did we miss anything?
I really don't think so. I mean, everything was covered. The one thing I would say, I don't think it was mentioned, of course, as we all know, or I think everybody knows that's on this, our audience here, is that the SBIR program is administered by the Small Business Administration, and they have a lot of useful tools on their website on ways to do business on the SBIR and just in the government in general. So I think that could be helpful, as well as what everybody else has mentioned. And us at DOT, we also use on our website, have a lot of sources listed that can help.
Thank you, Tammi. Now we will open the discussion for Q&A from the audience. Kathy, we have questions?
Yeah, and I think talking about the SBA and at Arrowhead, I know we get this question and asking for guidance and consultation. So really talking about that unique value proposition. So could you offer some tips or elaborate on the importance of demonstrating unique value proposition in proposals?
Do we have any volunteers? Tim?
Well, I guess as somebody who's done the evaluations, I would say that, you go through sort of several levels as you evaluate on the technical side. you see what answers the mail on addressing the topic, and things that are doable in terms of they can be done with the proposed people and equipment and within the timeline and budget. And then that's where I think the value proposition plays into it, is kind of the final decision maker, that if you've got 4 or 5 proposals that met all the other requirements, then that's kind of what you're down to, is which ones offer the best value for the government.
Sara, did you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I did. Tim, you made some great points, and I always think about it from a novelty perspective, what is new that you're offering to the government or the agency in general, but also what is the realistic sustainability of what you're proposing, can it survive past the experiment phase? Can it survive past the testing phase? So we really focus about sustaining something that you're proposing to us. So that is also something to think about, is your ability to not just propose something that's new and innovative and brings novelty to what we're trying to solve, but how we can sustain that into operational for us, since we're Air Force, but also how we can sustain that to the commercial market as well. So those are things that I would say that you can provide an evaluation to look at it differently as well.
Thank you, Sara. Kathy, what is the next question we have?
Yeah, and this kind of relates to what you were talking about, Sara. So, what role does that risk assessment play in the decision-making process for funding, and how should applicants, really bring that up in their proposals?
Yeah, so being that we're government, it's subject to availability of funds. We all know that the funds that we receive or may not receive may drive the research or the time of the research that we have. So going back to what Tim mentioned as well, is being reasonable at the time that you have to solve the problem. With SBIRs, we know that there's the SBIR-based one that allows you to do that experimentation of the idea. And then your SBIR phase 2, really when you're prototyping what you're doing. And of course, your 3 is when you're really developing and putting into practice. So, going back to that storytelling, I always tell people, when you're writing a SBIR 1, you really should be writing a SBIR 2. And when you're writing a SBIR 2, you really should be writing for a SBIR 3. Because you want to tell your reader and your evaluators, walk them through that story of, I'm not just proposing the solution that you're asking me for, but I'm also proposing the answer to something that can be sustained long-term. So if you use that philosophy, I think it can help you focus on your strong proposal to, yes, I'm at a 1, but really what I'm aiming to is a 2. And when I'm at a 2, I'm really aiming at a 3, where it could be commercially available for usage, or to the Air Force in this case, so it can be applied in the field of what we're doing.
Tammi?
Yes, thanks. I'm trying to lower my hand. There we go. So that risk assessment is really for USDA. It's really something that gets some discussions going sometimes in our peer review panels. And one of the things that we always try to communicate to our evaluators is really that if there is that high risk proposal that's coming across and having a good discussion and has good technical merit, if it's going to have a high reward to balance out that risk, if it's really going to be a disruptive technology in agriculture, that they should not be shying away from a proposal like that, because it is going, if successful, it is going to have a large impact. And so that doesn't mean that we only fund high risk or high reward proposals, but we do have our evaluators make sure that they don't get nervous or shy away from recommending a proposal that might be high risk or high reward.
Thank you. Kathy, do we have any more questions?
Oh yeah, we have some great questions here. And we talked about the risk assessment, and Sara briefly touched on, scalability. So how important is the scalability of a project in the evaluation process?
I'll start if nobody else wants to. I think it's important to at least have that vision of that scalability that you can communicate to the peer review panel. They need to be able to see the potential of how you're going to grow your innovation from the benchtop or the lab into that full-sized product. It's one thing to demonstrate how a little tiny piece might fit on a model combine. It's another thing to scale that little tiny piece up into something that actually fits on a full-size combine. And so, you know, and then to say how you're going to grow that from producing that one piece that fits on that one combine in order to be able to scale that up and be able to produce them for orders that are coming in. So I think it is important to look at how you're going to scale and grow that innovation and provide that vision of how you're going to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I would say even when going after other sources of funding, investors, banks, they want to see that it's a market large enough to be a winner, first, second, in that size, in that market. So just being able to deliver that message, to talk about scalability, and also to prove that the government is not your only client, because it might be like a close pathway to commercialization. Any other comments, Jamie?
I will add, I think that's a very important part that Tammi made. I think it's very important to communicate how, you know, what it's going to look like in the market, and who's going to want it. This kind of brings me to a side note, how one of the opportunities that we provide to our phase 1 awardees is the I-Corps program, which is a 6-week intense boot camp where companies go and interview 100 people in the field and to get a better understanding if that's something that their technology is something that they actually want in the market. So kind of getting ahead before that phase 2, when it's in the feasibility study, to make sure it's, you know, it's something that could be used in the market, if it's something that they want, and how they can tailor it to make it fit to how it can actually be used. Because otherwise, you know, the SBIR is not going to be successful going forward.
And I would add to that, you know, Jamie, great point is, you know, think about dual users, you know, if maybe something that the Department of Energy may use, but also the Department of the Air Force may use, or the Department of Defense. So don't limit yourself to just that one particular customer or one particular agency. Think about who else can benefit from what you're developing and what technology you're bringing to the market. And I think that's key as well, is to think of multiple users that can take advantage of what you're developing and not just one individual person.
Yeah, that was what I was going to add to, in addition to what everybody else said. I think know your customer, because the customer isn't just the government. And in some cases, like at DOT, it's may not even be the government. It really is that commercial market. So you have to think about everything that'll, like, I know we've had this happen a lot, that as things are advanced, the end product or the technology, it's way too expensive for the user to want to invest in it. It wouldn't make sense. So you have to think about all areas as you're trying to develop it.
Thank you, Tammi. Tim, any thoughts? How do you approach scalability and market size in the proposals?
Well, I think the most important thing about scalability and market is part of what Sara said earlier. You know, I think you've got to address it, but you have to address it in a realistic manner, and that's another place sometimes people have pitfalls that you know, I think what the evaluator wants to see, as well as the agency manager that makes the final decision on what proposals get funded, is a believable scalability plan. You know, you can't go from step 1 to step 5, and you know, you also can't just say that well, there's a $1 billion market for this if we can just get past stage 1. You've got to lay that out, and it has to be something that's grounded in fact. and that somebody can actually walk through the steps that you propose and say, yeah, that makes sense, but you can't go overboard with it.
And
Yeah,
Tim, I'm going to add something to that. As you're looking at that, you also have to think about, the production of it, going back to the realistic proposal you're giving us to Evaluator to think about is, often we hear the term the valley of death, but I think there's also the valley of production, the valley of consumers. So there's multiple things that go into your plan as you're developing your technology and your science and you're thinking of your idea is, beginning, middle, and end, and multiple ends. It doesn't necessarily just have to be one end. It could be multiple ends that serve as this technology.
And one thing I'd add to that too that a lot of people forget is that if you have an idea for something new and innovative, it doesn't have to be something that your plan is to actually go manufacture yourself. You can license it, you can bring on partners. Those can all be believable scalability approaches.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is having a beachhead market, having multiple entry points into the market. In venture, we often see people saying like, if we get 1% of the market, we will be in the millions. So it's like, okay, having a clear and realistic path towards commercialization that can be licensing, can be going into commercialization, but just understanding that there is a market that is big enough, but also that you have a clear path to entering the market and then scaling from there. Kathy, do we have any last couple questions? Any last
and
question?
I know we're short on time, but I'm going to try to combine these two questions together because it's really looking at, differences on successful packages towards granting or contracting agencies. But we also had a question kind of come in saying, with the TRL 9, do agencies have a desire for a commercial product that can be modified for government use, especially in SBIR phase 2 timeframe?
I would just say on that, like, who's making the TRL assessment? So that's sort of important. So I don't know if that, yeah. So I would just say is if it's a true TRL 9 or that would almost make it seem like it's a product readily available in the market, which of course then it wouldn't have a need for an SBIR. Yeah, so I think the TRL level, I'm sure it varies greatly by agency, but that's not necessarily a determination because there are nuances amongst the different agencies in some of the TRL definitions. I know because I worked at DoD for so long. Yeah, so that's sort of my take on that.
I think I would add though that if proposal comes in and somebody's making the claim that it's TRL 9, if I'm evaluating that, the first question in my mind is then why do you need us? Why do you need our money?
Yeah. For USDA, TRL 9 seems pretty high, especially because we don't have a directive to phase 2 program. We only have you have to succeed at phase 1 before you can apply for phase 2. And so for phase 1, we're really looking at those early stage proof of concept type of innovations. And so a TRL 9 is going to be way above that. But I do want to touch just a little bit on a successful package for, I can speak for granting agency, and not necessarily for the contracting agency, but our USDA applications come out, granting agency, they're very broad. We actually want your ideas to come to us. And then our peer review panels are going to evaluate your ideas that you bring to us. We're not going to say we're looking for a solution to X problem. We want you to say, I have a solution that's going to solve this problem. And this is my great idea on how I'm going to do that. And so that for our granting agency, that's what we're looking for with that innovation is you're bringing us your great idea for a solution. And that I think is a little different compared to some of those contracting agencies that are going to be looking for a specific solution to a specific concern or issue.
And Tammi, I was going to add to that is just saying, it depends. I'm going to give you that general answer, depends, but kind of echoing what Tim said, the initial ones are just kind of like your basic idea, but as you're working with your technical point of context from a phase 1 to a phase 2 or a phase 3, they will be the ones to kind of help you along the way, evaluate or help you determine where your technology sits to where they're going to move it to. So I think it's just important to keep that strong communication with your technical point of context when you're working with them. And once you have been awarded, a phase 1, and they'll be measuring, your route, or they'll be measuring your growth, and the science and technology, the development, the realistic piece of it that may come to us. So I think every proposal, of course, depends to what it is, but a lot of those answers can be by the relationship that you build with your technical point of context that can help you really determine where your technology is going to from the beginning to the end.
Thank you, Sara. And with this, I would like to thank the panelists for this invaluable insight, and thank you to the audience for engaging with us. Remember, the key to a successful SBIR STTR proposal is understanding each agency's unique requirements and clearly communicate your value proposition, your innovation idea, and read the instructions and read all the call for proposals and contracts. And with that, I will turn it over to Garrett. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Carlos. And thank you again to the panel for sharing your insights on the review process and requirements. There's just so many nuances between agency requirements. So make sure you are connecting with the agency representatives and your local FAST sites for support, everyone. We will see you back on the main stage at 2:55 for our final panel of the day, which is focused on building a successful team as you approach the SBIR STTR programs. We'll see you there.